Miscommunications dropped dramatically. Leadership gaps became visible, and the entire organization started moving faster with less drama. So the systems didn't just improve performance, it really literally helped people trust each other again.
Welcome to the Team Amplifier Podcast. I'm your host, Byron Summerdahl. Here you'll be inspired by industry leaders who build flourishing tech teams. Stay tuned and prepare to be amplified.
3, 2, 1.
Hey everybody, we're here with Mike Turner. Today we're talking about giving our teams an API for their brain. Yeah, you need to stay tuned and so we can kind of unpack that and figure out what we mean by this today. It's going to be a good one. Mike is a fractional CTO, Marine Corps veteran, and a lifelong builder of resilient, people-centered teams. Mike, can you tell us more about you and what you got going on?
Yeah, I think, for me, my leadership journey kind of started early. I think I grew up in a children's home. So I kind of shaped my teamwork through sports, leadership, through the Marines, and some real world leadership experience, consulting, and obviously my executive IT role. So, I just kind of had a bad shake at life early on. Got myself in some trouble and ended up in a children's home, which changed my life for the better. So that's just kind of where I started. I'll put a plug in there for Tipton Children's Home in Tipton, Oklahoma, which I think they're a great place. I spent, from 12 to 18 years old and then left there and joined the Marines, but not your traditional, kind of leader that comes out of the boardroom. I lead a little bit different. The teams that I've led are a lot different in how they perform. And when I walk away, I feel like I walk away literally giving them more than what they came with. Like the mentoring style and stuff really shows through because a lot of them still communicate with me now. So, yeah.
So what are some ways that you think life in a children's home impacts your leadership style?
Well, I think for me, early on, kind of growing up with 12 other guys. So there's already a team dynamic there. There's already kind of like, it's 24/7. You're around these other guys, different ages from 12. Typically, they kept most of us in older ones to kind of grow up with the older group. So, but yeah, I think I remember a point in time where there was some rifts and some back and forth in that whole, kind of dynamic of living together and dealing with conflict was really a big piece of it. Like having to have patience in how other people, navigate this house that we live in where there's literally, I guess there's like 6 different rooms because we're all like bucked up with each other. You had your own roommate and just kind of learning how to navigate that as a teenager. That's some real skill right there. Like you're growing up fast.
And Mike, I wonder if some time in the Marine Corps had some influence on your leadership style too.
Absolutely. So, it's interesting because I brag about the Marine Corps all day, but I feel like personally it's the best leadership school you can go to. And in a lot of ways, the world kind of feels that way too, right? I mean, it's just a different scale. Like when you meet a Marine or you work with a Marine, they're at just a different level. And I can't really explain it. And I think it just goes back to the drive and our work ethic and just everything that we do. We always want to do it in a superior and just at the highest level. I don't think someone wakes up one day and goes, I want to be a Marine without having something in them that kindles them that says, I want to be the best of the best, or I want to strive for more than what my life has given me. I mean, you can say whatever you want, but at the end of it, I feel like that's a big piece of it. And I think for me, leadership style wise, I spent 10 years in the Marines. So I got 10 good solid years of leadership, skill sets that were honing how I would lead. And I think for that and just sports, I got to play a lot of sports in high school, but that was the teamwork, that leadership honing of me, really just put me at a whole different level, I think, in how I could understand people, and put that empathy in it and just really understand how teams dynamics work, how people want more in their career. And that's just right there. That puts it together.
So I imagine books also have a role to play in your development as a leader. So I'm curious about if you've been reading a book lately that has made an impact on you.
I kind of read it. I do have a book in mind. I tend to go back to it from time to time. And it's a book by David Goggins. And, a lot of, I'm a military guy. I'm going to resonate with that already. And the book's titled Can't Hurt Me. And it, for me, I think it just challenged me to really rethink my mental toughness. I think that's the whole premise of the book, is just to be like, really understand that mindset, and how I could lead teams through really difficult times. I mean, one of the biggest things in life is how mentally strong are you? Are you capable to mentally take on these challenges as being a leader? And for me, that's something I always have to go back to. And I feel like, I think that's what makes people that go through the Marine Corps get into boot camp, is their mental toughness, and the same thing is and I think that's what resonates with me. And it's one of my favorite books because of it. And just understanding this guy and what he went through, and when you're like halfway through the third chapter and you're like, man, this guy went through all this stuff, and you're just like now just really diving into his life, because you just felt like, oh, this is the book, but it's just the third chapter. He's got like so many more chapters to go of toughness and things he's got to go through. And you haven't even got to the part where he, was in the Navy SEALs and everything. So it's just, I don't want to give away the book, but really quite amazing story. And so I can really resonate with that.
Awesome. We'll make sure that's in the show notes so that everybody can take a look at the book, download it, buy it. Now, we've been talking a lot about your upbringing and how you got started in leadership, but you've actually been in leadership for several years now. And I want to make sure that we recognize that, and also one of the building blocks that makes any of us a leader that's worth his salt, which is the mistakes that we've made. And so I want to get you to tell us and share with us a story about an embarrassing mistake that you made as a tech leader. So, Mike, it's confession time. It's one of my favorite times of this podcast. So step into my confession booth, and it's just you and me, nobody else is, maybe a few people, but let me have it.
Sure. Okay. So let me take you back. I think this was around, maybe 2018, somewhere around there. So it's not too long ago, but fairly recent. I was working for a company called Star Anesthesia. And so I was the IT director there, one of the largest anesthesia groups in San Antonio at the time. I always say this, that they were doing close to 90% of the surgeries in San Antonio, to kind of give you scale. I mean, their anesthesiologists were everywhere. Anyway, so I guess the day we're about to go live with this new anesthesia app that's running on an iPad, and we've got probably well over 200, 300 iPads just all over San Antonio, all these doctors' offices, they're ready to go live. And I thought it was a great idea that I would go ahead and play kickball the night before. I played, I don't even know if you could say this. This is how it's embarrassing. I played competitive kickball. So, I don't know. That's funny in itself, right?
I like it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I played competitive kickball. And we got really competitive. You steal bases, you slide. It's legit. It's like baseball, but with a big rubber ball. Anyways, the night before, we're just playing a regular season game, and I'm still in second to third, and I slid into third. And the only problem with kickball is I kind of make the assumption is that everybody is as skilled and has played baseball and understands how to maneuver and navigate. And the truth is, some people, that's the first thing they play. They're just good at it. And they don't really understand. So I'm sliding into third, and the guy was kind of on third, and his knee was on third, and my wrist, and I got a nice little scar to prove it right there, a bunch of stitches, a plate, everything. I slid into third, and I thought I just sprained my wrist, but I shattered it. And so I played the rest of the game with one hand. This one I couldn't use. I just kind of held it there. But, I was kind of catching the ball and throwing. I was doing what I could on first base. Or thank goodness there was just like maybe one or two more innings left. But can't tell you if we won or lost. That's how important it was, that game. So I can't tell you that. What I can tell you is I ended up in surgery the next day. And that surgery was right when we're going live with this new application. So I've got literally the chief medical officer looking over me. I've got another anesthesiologist and a CCNA. So like three people all making sure Mike gets into the surgery, Mike gets out of the surgery, Mike becomes conscious again and is coherent so that I can make sure that the go live that's supposed to happen an hour or so later goes live. Again, that's a testament to my team because they didn't really need me. At that point, it was literally the execs felt like they needed me. My CMO felt like he needed me, which is always nice to fill that value. But the end result was that. And so I have to tell people now about that story, which now I have to confess that I'm a professional, or not a professional, I'm a competitive kickball player with a jersey and everything.
And that's quite a conversation starter, I guess, at parties. Like people might notice that scar and they're like, hey, what happened to that? Was that like the time you rescued a team of SEALs on a mission? Or is that a knife wound that you received from somebody in Los Angeles? No, it's an old kickball injury.
No. Exactly. Yeah, that's it exactly. That's exactly how that goes. So.
And did they, I guess they didn't use the one of the 100 or 200 tablets to handle the anesthesia for your surgery because it was before the go live.
I don't know, to be honest. There was a soft launch in that, so it's possible that there was one or two going out. Again, once they put me to sleep, I have no idea. I can tell you this: the project went off without a hitch. It worked out really well. It was another one of those great projects that I can put a feather in my hat that we saved a lot of money and we were able to increase productivity and all those wins. So, yeah, I felt like I even think it came up that, hey, do you want to postpone the go live? We had hundreds of thousands of dollars riding on this. I was like, no, not because of me going out and playing kickball. So I guess if there's ever, some kind of thing that I would tell somebody, I would say, hey, probably don't do any big activities or anything the night before a big launch. Probably take it easy and chill a little bit. For me, I kind of do that. So, and
definitely have a really awesome team that doesn't need you at the end of the day.
Doesn't need me at the end of the day. Yeah. So I would be honest, they probably did have a couple of iPads there and they were going live because it started at 8 a.m. My surgery wasn't until 10 a.m. So it's very likely that they did. And it kind of scaled up as we went. So
that's the ultimate dog food, eating your own dog food.
Yep.
So
literally.
We've got a pretty interesting theme for today. It might be kind of like people might think it's clickbait in the title of the episode. And I want to assure everybody that this is not clickbait. It's interesting, the idea, but it's definitely something real. And you'll find out here in this episode. So let's just get into it. Mike, what do we mean by giving our team an API for their brain? Like, are we going to be like connecting people to the matrix and like sending in post requests to create new thoughts? Or what are we doing here?
Essentially, I think, an API, as we all know, is that piece that really allows us to communicate. It gives us that standard in which we communicate, and it takes dissimilar systems and allows them to communicate. And it's a framework, right? So it's all of those things. So, when we talk about giving, an API for the brain, or we're talking about helping your team with this API, it's basically building a framework of discussion. It's setting some rules, setting some framework, and then digging into them. So, one of the biggest thing is just clarity around communication, understanding what the expectations are, working with your team with clarity, all those things, just communications. That's the start of it. And that's exactly what, basically an API is, right? It's a big highway. So there's kind of where we start out with it. So
how do we do that though? This is kind of like a API and the documentation, or maybe an SDK for an API is going to provide you with instructions on how to interact with the API. So when we talk about human beings, what's the analogy there?
Yeah, let's start with the documentation aspect of the API. So I think when we really look into this and we start just talking about how are we going to deal with our team, I think actually having some level of documentation, and for me, I call it like a professional growth plan. It starts right away. It starts in the form of that first meeting when you have a one-to-one with that person and you start lining up what expectations look like. You also start looking at really what is it that makes you get up in the morning? What is it that helps you, be your best? And in this case, we call it a professional growth plan, and I kind of got that from my years of also doing some education, but really it's a personal and professional goal setting plan. It just really lines up. I want to do this, that, and the other. I want to have this certification done by this time. I want to learn this thing. And, again, this is before AI is even a thing. I was doing this, and we were lining up a project plan. We were literally putting dates to stuff. We were prioritizing things. We were setting up this documentation, you might say. And we pull it out every quarter because we would also want to follow up every quarter and see how you're doing. And I literally kept a percentage of how far along you are on your goals. So, after the first quarter, you should be about 25% done, about the halfway part. And then, come October, November, I'm expecting you to be about 75% done. And I'm asking you about it. I'm holding you accountable for it. And hopefully the end in December, you're like, I've accomplished some stuff this year. And the beautiful thing is I don't dictate what's on that professional growth plan. I let the employee put whatever they want on there. What is important for them? Because ultimately, I'd love to see everything being job related. But the truth is, we're not all built that way. We're built what makes us drive. So some of it may be, I just want to, save $1,000 so I can move out of the house because I'm a young tech and I don't want to live at home no more. And other times it's, I need to have this certification and that certification and whatever. So yeah, it's that first initial step. So that's that documentation.
We do something very similar to this at my company. And I can definitely see the parallels between what we're doing and like giving people an API for their brain and their own growth, because it's like, we use a Trello board for ours. And if I know as a supervisor, as a leader, that this employee needs to improve their skills in AI prompting or in HTTP protocol or something like that, because I've been noticing that they've been tripping up in meetings or just been going a little too slow on certain tasks, because it's evident that it's because of this skill. Well, I can throw something on that board without having a conversation in that moment, and then it's going to come up in the next one-on-one. Like that card that's on the Trello board gets a discussion. And I can trust that. As a leader, I kind of have an API to their brain because I have an interface where I can throw something and just kind of trust that it's going to get dealt with at some point. They have a one-on-one with their supervisor, and eventually they're going to talk about HTTP protocol and where do we need to improve in this. I love the concept. It's making me think of all kinds of things, like onboardings, like an onboarding process that we maybe put new employees through. That seems like it also could be a kind of API, because I can throw things into that onboarding once ahead of time, like maybe even years ahead of time, and then I trust that every single time they're going to hit it. Now I'm kind of getting off into the leadership, like the things that it gives me an API to their brain, but we're also talking about giving them, the team members, an API for their brain. You mentioned growth pathways as an option, as a way to give them interface where they can add things to their own growth pathways. Can you think of any other examples off the top of your head of ways to give people their own, like, amped up access to their own brain and their own growth?
Yeah. So I guess one of the things that I kind of got when I spent about 4 years working for a mega church, and it was empathy. And so one of the things that I learned in my executive time there was that we are not all built the same. And I knew this already, but it really resonated with me. And so we introduced a framework called the 5 Voices. And it completely shifted team dynamics. It was across the board for the organization. And there's lots of organizations do this a little bit differently. They all have their own little framework or their own system that they want to, go with. Some of it's called Strength Quest. Some of it's 5 Voice. But in the end, as a leader, you need to kind of find what that is that your company's really striving for and find the pieces of it that really help you with your team dynamics. And what I mean by that in this case, 5 Voices, one of the big things was just understanding where that person's coming from. And there's 5 of them. So there's typically, you have different types of styles. And for me, I'm the kind of person that is a leader that leads in more of a guardian type style. So I'm going to be a logical thinker. I'm going to try to guard my team, which again makes this whole mentoring, this API framework work for me. But other people are creative people, or they're connecting type of people, right? So they're going to connect other people with other people. We're just like, for me, I love to use this analogy. It's like I look at it and I go, if I walk into a meeting or into a big room with a bunch of people, am I the kind of person that loves to walk through the whole room and shake hands with people and meet everybody and say hi to everybody? Or am I the kind of person that goes straight for the, punch bowl and try to get a drink and then find a corner somewhere, right? And that really says something about you as a person. That says, hey, I'm just not a connector. I'm more of this type of person. I'm kind of we call them introverts or whatever, but I'm just more of a person that would just rather be at home and have a small group of friends and all that fun stuff. Right? So that kind of just helps you really understand what your team is. And so you put a label on them. And, and as a leader, yes, you're going to drive them, but your team's also got to know this too. They got to know what kind of person you are. They got to know what kind of person other teammates are, what everybody is. And I'm being a little vague on the 5 Voices on purpose, because I think for me, you just have to find what that system is within your organization. You don't want to go and try to build your own culture. You just want to instill into the culture that's already there in your organization, this type of piece, right? And just identify your team, identify what makes them click. And if there's not a system or a framework in place in your organization, by all means, look at 5 Voices, introduce it to your team, and get them kind of on board to kind of understand what makes you work. It's a little survey they fill out, and it helps them identify what their primary is and what their secondary is. So really, really just a great way. And in the end, now you got some kind of language you're speaking with your team. You're able to understand that I have a creative person on my staff. They're very creative. They're going to come out with a bunch of really high level goals and things that they want to accomplish, but they're not going to have a lot of meat and structure to it. They're not even going to probably have a really great plan. They're just going to really say, hey, man, this is great if we could do this. And that's really where it's going to be left with, where you're going to have somebody that's kind of a guardian-based person that's going to go, okay, yeah, but I need to know what are the steps to get there, what are the milestones, and when do we need to have it accomplished. And so you put those two together in a room, they're actually going to complement each other. One's going to come out with these really great ideas, and someone's going to come out with a great plan. And in the end, you're going to be like, okay, yeah, that's a well-oiled machine team that you're working with.
So with that, especially with the 5 Voices, I've used other ones as well. There's like the matrix colors that I really liked for years. And I'm surprised you heard of that one, because I haven't found a lot of people that have heard of that one. But then there's There are other ones like you can go the Myers-Briggs direction. You can go Strength Finders with Clifton. All kinds
Yes.
of all kinds of really, really cool frameworks. I like Five Voices because it seems to focus a lot on trying to give the individual players their own, to use our terminology, their own API for themselves. Like
Right.
it gives some information to the leader to say, hey, these are the people that you have on your team. This is how you can interact with them. But it also really focuses a lot of energy on each person, giving them feedback on how they can communicate with their team members. It really does give
Right.
them their own API to themselves and to their team. It gives them some self-awareness, some empathy, like you mentioned, for the entire team. So we're kind of getting into the human aspect now of this. And so I want to kind of like get this question out there so we can focus on this. What does giving people, your team, an API for their own brain have to do with human flourishing?
Well, I think, it's really clarity reduces stress and friction, right? So whenever you have that transparency and that clarity, people know what's expected and how to move forward. So they can focus on doing meaningful work and growing personally, not just surviving another day-to-day miscommunication, right? Like that's the key really, is if you can find a way to communicate. And I get it. We all speak English or we all speak whatever our native tongue is, and we're communicating. But how many times have you had a conversation with somebody and you're like, I know we're saying the same thing, but I don't understand what you just said. And that just happens a lot. So imagine a team dynamic where this is occurring over and over again. Eventually it wears you down to a point where I'm just not going to ask my boss for what he means by this, or I'm not going to ask. And it just goes downhill from there. So to keep that from happening, just allowing that clarity to be there. And then people come to work, they're less stressed because they're like, I cleared my desk yesterday because I had complete clarity on what was going on. I was able to get work done, whatever the case is. So yeah, I think that's the big one that's where I would kind of really dive in that.
That clarity also is going to help people to communicate more effectively. And that's one of those things I've always noticed. It helps people to flourish more and more is when they communicate effectively, they feel like they're heard. They feel like they have gotten their thought across, and they just feel better about themselves, their contribution
Absolutely.
to the work, to the team. And because they're communicating effectively, they can build genuine relationships with their team members, with their supervisors, and the whole team can begin to flourish because of that. So I completely agree with you. This idea of giving people an API for their brain, it's wide. It has to do with a lot of different things. We mentioned a growth pathway, giving people an API for their growth and growing their brain. That is going to help people to grow as well. Right. And then we've talked about like onboarding pathways or onboarding processes that help people to understand where they fit into the team, how best to communicate with their teammates, with what to expect from their supervisors and the job around them, the company around them, the tools. All of these things are going to help people to be more effective. And because of that, they're going to flourish. I love it. I want to think about how else this fits into my own company and figure out how to integrate this thought process. Because there's probably so many things that could be thought of and leveraged as this kind of figurative API for the brain. But if it's so good, like let's just say this is like the best thing since sliced bread. If it's so good, why don't more tech leaders do things like with these frameworks? Why don't we all jump in and start using Five Voices or giving growth pathways, things like that?
Yeah, and I think it's kind of simple and difficult at the same time. It's because it's hard to slow down. Most leaders are so busy reacting to problems that they don't take the time to build systems to prevent problems in the first place, right? It's easier to push tasks than it is to create clarity. That's absolutely it in a lot of ways. And I'm sure I'm probably simplifying it a little bit, but if you slow down a little bit and build, and I'm a big proactive type person. Like I love to take my infrastructure team and tell them, look, I would rather you take all day and solve this problem for your future selves than to take 5 minutes and just put a Band-Aid on it. I know that 5 minute is like quick and you're moving on to the next thing. I get it. But man, wouldn't it be nice if you just kind of really figured out what was causing your heartache over and over again and just solve it permanently so it's not there anymore? And I think the same way as with this framework. I mean, just going in and going, like, I got to put something together and then help my team dynamic and add clarity and all that. It just really is, it takes time.
So what do you think tech leaders, like when they're just starting out, trying to implement something like this, what do you think tech leaders often overlook when building a system or an API for people's brains?
Well, I think it's the human experience. So it's not enough to build great workflows. You have to think about how people experience those workflows every day. So if the system confuses the user, it doesn't matter how elegant the back end looks, right? So I think for me, that's really it. Like, they just overlook the human experience.
Do you think that people often overlook the consent factor? Like, if we're going to start trying to hack people's brains, their experience, their growth, do you think that we need to have conversations ahead of time and just kind of say, hey, this is what we're hoping that we can do with you. This is where we hope we can take you. Is that where you want to go?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, that's part of that first initial setting expectations, having that initial conversation is that you are wanting to take them under your wing. You want to mentor them. You want to make them better as a person and ultimately better at their job. Like I think the key there is you're saying, I want to make you a better person. And whatever you come at that angle, I think they truly know that you care and they truly know that you're there to help them out. Some of the coolest times and most difficult times is when I'm seeing someone leave my organization to go on to bigger and better things. And I'm super excited for them, for what they're going to go do and accomplish. But on the same side, I'm also very upset to see them leave. And because of all the times you spent together, really helping them get to where they're at, where they can take on that next role and excel. So yeah, to me, I think it's that human experience.
That actually brings up a thought about some reasons why some leaders might not decide to implement systems and frameworks like this in their own teams. If I've had the same, I don't know if it's a moral dilemma or a conundrum or whatever. It was just like, I realized one day that I was losing people, not because I wasn't providing a great experience. It was mostly because I was preparing people so well that they would get poached by other companies. And for a while, I was really sad about it, kind of distraught. Like, how could somebody leave me? I just provided for them this amazing utopian employment experience. And, maybe I couldn't compete with the pay scale of the other company that came and lapped them up. But I had to decide. I even had conversations with my leadership team. Like, are we shooting ourselves in the foot by doing anything at all to prepare people, to make them better versions of themselves, to pour into them and invest in them? I eventually had to realize that it's actually the only way that's worth it to employ people like you. So for me, I have to pour into them. So it's just like, screw the future. If I lose people, so be it. I'd rather lose people because I did too good of a job with them. But that's probably one reason why a lot of leaders decide not to, because I don't know how strongly people feel about doing that with their employees. I hope that our audience here, just because we're trying to attract people that do care about people, I hope that our audience already kind of feels that way. But that was a tough one for me. For a while, I spent at least a month kind of in turmoil trying to figure out whether or not I should continue investing in people.
So for me, I think when you look at it like this, you say, I'm going to invest time, money, expertise into somebody. The byproduct is really loyalty in some regards, right? Because you make a legitimate connection as a leader. They understand you're a great leader, great mentor. The organization excels better. And I think you build in a little bit of loyalty. I mean, in today's age, maybe that's probably the wrong word to use, because really, do you have loyalty in an organization anymore? I don't know. But I think at a team dynamic, you working with your teams, you build that rapport, you build that. And it's really a hard decision for them to make, to go on to do something else, because they love it so much there, and that they don't want to disappoint you or feel like they're disappointing you because they're leaving you high and dry maybe. But that, again, you have another great conversation with them about how this is ultimately what I want for you, is to go on and do bigger, better things. I mean, I got to see lots of employees that worked under me go to work for some of the biggest companies in the world, and do amazing stuff. So I'm like, that's the best right there, is to watch them go on.
So let's talk about that. Can you share about a time when giving people an API for their brain led to unexpected results?
Yeah. So so when we introduced that 5 voices framework, it completely shifted team dynamics. So miscommunications dropped dramatically, leadership gaps became visible, and the entire organization started moving faster with less drama. So the systems didn't just improve performance, it really literally helped people trust each other again. Like, I think that's the key, is like when it's like you're wandering around out there without a compass, and then you turn around and now you've got this compass in your hand, you know which way is north. And you're like, okay, I need to head north now. That's a game changer.
So, Mike, if there's one thing you think people out there, tech leaders, should do tomorrow to start promoting human flourishing in their teams, what would it be?
Start truly caring. When you genuinely care about people, not just their output, you naturally start wanting the best for them. So you stop asking surface level questions, right? Like, how's everything going? You start asking deeper questions, like, where would you rate yourself today on what I like to call the health index? So this is another takeaway framework. So the health index, it's a simple framework. It just looks at 5 practical areas, like your sense of purpose, your key relationships, how's your living and work environment, maybe some their physical and mental health, and then your financial stability. So these frameworks, you put them in and you just rate them from 1 to 10, right? And then average it out in your head. It doesn't have to be really sophisticated as an employee. Just know that as a leader, when you have your 1-to-1, that their leader is going to ask you, what's your health index? And you need to have a number in mind. And the follow-up will be, is why is it that? And a good key takeaway for me is when I had the 1-on-ones with staff and I sat down with them and I said, so what's your health index? And they, if someone says, hey, I'm a 5, or if it's lower, that's a trigger for concern. So anywhere in between is an opportunity to offer real support. So that's, hey, it's a 5. Okay, so why is it a 5? Well, and it's not just that simple question of how are you doing today? You're because everybody's going to say, oh, I'm doing great. Everything's great. And the reality is everything may not be great. So when you take the time to understand where your team truly is, you don't just get better results. You help flourish people. The people flourish. And that's what leadership is all about. It's about doing that, helping your team flourish.
So, Mike, how can people connect with you?
Well, yeah, miketurner.us. I think that's probably the best way to really find me. I have my own online resume, and from there, my LinkedIn is on there. My Facebook, all my social media is on there. Kind of tells a little bit about me and kind of all where my experience comes from. But I would recommend they go there first, kind of hunt me down that way.
Awesome. Mike, this has been such a great conversation, and I'm excited about implementing APIs for our brains in our organization. So thank you so much for giving me some inspiration here, and we'll be talking to you again soon.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
This has been another episode of the Team Amplifier podcast. Thanks for joining us. Now, get out there and be a team amplifier.